Today's video is sponsored by Squarespace. It's that time of the year again. Predictions. Don't worry, I'm not doing my actual season predictions for 22 until we've seen some testing because there's literally nothing to go on. But what I will be doing today is talking about what drivers I think are going to be in the sport in 2023. And this question's even more poignant because half of the entire grid is out of contract at the end of 2022. Gasly, Alonso, Latifi, Perez, Tsunoda, and Sebastian Vettel, Schumacher, Joe, and Alex Albon. Carlos Sainz has only just had his contract extension announced. Actually, to be fair, it's Monday. It hasn't actually been announced yet. I'll put yes or no here depending on whether or not the extension's been announced yet. Does that necessarily mean those lot are going to leave their teams? Of course not. But can a contract be bought out? Yes. So ultimately, I'm not going to let that play too much thought in my head, to be honest. Sergio Perez thought we had a contract at Racing Point and that didn't happen, did it? But before we get into 2023, I wanted to quickly reflect on my driver predictions from 2022. I didn't feel like reacting to that justified a whole video in itself. So we're just going to quickly look back at the start of this and then we'll crack on with my 2023 ones. Number one, it's got to be the McLaren boys. Ricciardo, Norris, both on point at the minute, both smashing it. Performance, only one of them smashed it in 2021. But regardless, the prediction is correct. Next, I'm putting Aston Martin. Now, of course, Stroll ain't going to lose that seat. That's absolutely, again, correct. Well done. Next, we have Ferrari. Now, Charles Leclerc, pretty obvious. Of course, he's going to stay. Correct. Haas. Brand new rookie lineup for this season. Correct. I'm saying they're going to stick Red Bull with Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez. Again, obvious. Correct. I'm saying Mercedes. Surely they're going to get rid of Bottas and bring in Russell. Correct. They did. Sorry, Valtteri. Next, AlphaTauri. And I'm saying Yuki Tsunoda and Alex Albon. So I'm saying incorrect. Albon did not join AlphaTauri, but he did join Williams. Who would have predicted him joining Williams? Like, genuinely, though. And then onto Alpine. I am saying Esteban Ocon. Correct. And Pierre Gasly. This is why Gasly's seat opens up at Alpha. No, the French master team, it wasn't to be. L Plan got in the way of that. But fair play, Alonso. He deserves it. Williams, I'm saying Nicholas Latifi and Valtteri Bottas. Now, I know that I thought he might have gone back home, but he didn't. He went to Sauber instead. And last but by no means least, Alfa Romeo. I'm going with Antonio Giovinazzi and Nico Hülkenberg. Now, as for Giovinazzi, obviously both wrong. No more Nico, no more Antonio in Formula 1 at the moment. They're not great, are they? Let's be honest, these predictions. They weren't fantastic. I feel with this season, look, I could play it safe and not change many, but look, the chance of nothing unlikely happening is in itself unlikely. Let's go with a few curveballs, shall we? Because they could happen. I think I've got a compelling argument for every single one of these, okay? And we're going to start in Constructors' Championship order, starting with Mercedes. I've debated this one a lot, but I'm saying it will still be Lewis Hamilton and George Russell in that car. George Russell is, of course, a no-brainer. Lewis Hamilton, is he going to win an 8th world title? I think if he wins an 8th world title, he retires, definitely, at the end of 2022. Do I see that happening? It's impossible to say because we just don't know where the cars are going to be. I think there's so much potential for other teams, not just Red Bull, but Ferrari, for McLaren, for Alpine, for Aston Martin, Williams, Haas, who knows, to be up there and fighting and challenging at the top and giving Lewis more to think about. I think he relished the challenge this year. I've gone between thinking he's going to retire. I can't say with confidence that I think Lewis is going to win the championship in 22, so I'm saying he stays for 23. You know what I think is really great? Squarespace. Why? Because they help you build websites. And websites are great. It's like your own little personal home. Whether you're just an individual, you've got a blog, any kind of passion project, portfolio, whether you're a business owner, you want somewhere to host your wares online. Squarespace has hundreds of customizable templates to make a website that you would just be proud to call your own. I've been using Squarespace for years, way predates this YouTube channel, and I've still used them to this day. So I think you should too. Trust me, if this mug can make a half decent looking website, then you definitely can. So head to squarespace.com, free of charge, have a play around with the functionality. You don't have to pay anything unless you're happy with what you've created. It's only when you want to put your creation live to the world that you do have to pay anything. And at that time, you should probably use the discount code TOMMOF1 or give the link in the top line description a tap to get 10% off your first website or domain. Then on to Red Bull. Max Verstappen, of course, stays. But alongside him, I've said Pierre Gasly, which is a bit of a long shot. not going to lie. I've got no doubt Pierre definitely burnt some bridges during his time at Red Bull. It didn't work out. He didn't seemingly have a great rapport and didn't respond very well to things not going his way. But look, that was a time ago. That was the first half of 2019. Like, he's a different man now. He's aged, he's matured. For me, he's been one of the top 5 drivers in the sport over the last 2.5 years since he went back to Toro Rosso AlphaTauri. He's been fantastic. He's over 6 years Sergio Perez's junior, and I think he's shown enough, because I think Pierre's going to have a fantastic 2022. I've got no reason not to believe that. And even if Perez has a really good 2022, which I don't think he's not going to have a good season, I just think that age gap is going to be too big of a hurdle to overcome. I know it's risky, but Pierre's still so young. When they brought him into that team, he'd only had 1 full season at Toro Rosso and a few races the season before that. He's a way different prospect now, and I feel like, not through Sergio doing badly, just Pierre being there and knocking on that door for long enough, I think Red Bull will give him the opportunity. Next, Ferrari. We'll do McLaren as well, because these 2 teams, I can't see their lineups changing. It's going to be Charles and Carlos at Ferrari. It's going to be Lando and Daniel at McLaren. I know Daniel had a pretty sus 2021, don't get me wrong, but by the end of the season, he came pretty good. He didn't finish miles behind Lando in terms of points, considering how bad it was at the start of the season, to be fair, either. Although Lando did get very unlucky. But, I love Daniel. I want this to happen. So that probably clouded my judgment. But look, he's shown enough over the course of his F1 career. He won 7 races in that Red Bull. He's not a mug. He had a poor season, just as, Vettel had a poor season in 2014. Perez had a poor season in 2021. You go through the history books of Formula One, and there's countless drivers who have had poor seasons after doing well, but does that have to define their entire career? No. And I believe in Daniel Ricciardo coming good. Lando, obviously different gravy. Charles, Carlos as well. Top tier. Why would they change? Easy. Next, we have Alpine. And the first, I'm saying Esteban Ocon and Oscar Piastri. I think Fernando will only have 1 more year in the sport. Not through his choice. I think he'll drive well in 2022. I really do. He massively exceeded my expectations in 2021. The problem is Oscar Piastri. They've already given Esteban this long contract, and Esteban's still super young, mid-20s. Oscar Piastri, early 20s, super young, so much potential, did exactly what George, did exactly what Charles did in Formula 2 and win the title convincingly. Because at the end of the day, Fernando Alonso is over 40 years of age. He's not going to be able to race forever, whereas Oscar Piastri, if Alpine give him, he could race for another 20 years because he's about 20 years younger than Fernando. Esteban's shown a lot of promise as well. Would Alpine risk losing that young junior talent who could go on to be an incredible Formula 1 driver for the sake of keeping Fernando for 2, maybe 3 more years pushing it? I think that'd be foolish. No disrespect to Fernando, but he must have known this was a situation he was coming into. As much as he's at the level, Alpine have got to think of the long game. They've got to think of the long game. I don't think he'll want to leave, but I think he will. Then on to AlphaTauri. And I'm saying Yuki Tsunoda, I have belief that he will come good in 2022. And Dennis Hauger alongside it. Formula 3 champion in 2021. Incredible driver. The only Norwegian quicker than Virtual. Part of the Red Bull Driver Academy. He's in F2. It's not officially confirmed, but it's pretty much confirmed that he's going to be in Formula 2. And obviously this is based on him having a very good F2 season, which, again, all of the pieces are there. He had a great F3 year, just like Oscar Piastri did. The potential is high. I think he'll have a stonking 2022 season in Formula 2, and I think he'll get the call up to AlphaTauri alongside Yuki. Next, we have Aston Martin, and I'm saying no change. I'm saying Sebastian Vettel remains at the team alongside Sir Lancelot. Obviously, Lance is not going to leave. His dad's in charge. It's not going to happen. And to be fair, Lance actually had an okay season. I don't think he had a bad season in 2021. I really don't. And Seb showed those signs that on his day, he can still deliver at the very, very top. Should have got 2 podiums in what was 7th quickest car of the season. That's super impressive. Yes, he made his mistakes, but overall, I think Seb can be pretty happy with his 2021 season. And Aston Martin, look, all this investment's going into that new factory in Silverstone. They bought a marquee signing like him in for a reason, and I think it would be a shame for him to not see out that journey, because it is not going to be an overnight success. I don't think anyone was expecting Aston Martin to hit the ground running in 2021. And even in 22, it's not like they're just going to immediately go in and slap it up, because look, let's be real, I've said it, I think Ferrari are going to be the team to beat in 22. I think Aston Martin, though, when you look in 24, 25, 26, long term, I think they're going to be a serious problem. Partly because Lawrence Stroll has so much money, he's so invested in Formula 1, and his son is in the team. So he's not just one of these investors who will duck when the marketing dollars ain't adding up. Like, Lawrence is in it for the long haul. Not to mention the fact he actually owns Aston Martin, the car brand, as well. So I think Aston Martin, long term, very good things. I think Seb should stay. I really do. And then on to Williams. I'm saying, of course, Alex Albon remains at the team, alongside Logan Sargent. That's right, Latifi to be dropped. I feel like I know what Williams are trying to do here. They've basically given Logan Sargent Dan Ticktum's old life. Basically, they've given him a Williams Driver Academy. They've given him an F2 seat as well. Because look, Logan, let's not get it twisted, right? 2020, he was leading the F3 title above Piastri, above Pourchaire, going into the final race of the season. Didn't work out in Mugello. Didn't have the funds to race F2 in 2021. But now he's part of Williams. They're going to give him that support. Young American driver from Florida. Williams know that if they can get him in a Formula One seat, yes, they might lose Latifi and the Safina money, but bringing an American driver into the sport, that will do a lot for Williams. That will bring a lot of sponsors. That will bring a lot of merchandise, a lot of eyeballs on that team, having the first American driver in F1 since, was it Alexander Rossi? I can't even remember. And I love Logan Sargent, so this would actually be 100%. I'd be Williams through and through if this did actually happen, because Albon Sargent would just be glorious. Next we have Alfa Romeo Sauber. I really hope that they could nail these new regulations, because Sauber's just been very meh team for a very, very long time now. But I'm saying in 2023, their driver lineup is an absolute corker. I'm saying they keep Valtteri Bottas and bring in the departing from Red Bull, Sergio Perez, back to Sauber, where it all began for Sergio, remember? And if they can create a really good package, I think Bottas, Perez would be phenomenal. Look, we know Guan Yu Zhou's in that seat because of the money, but don't forget, Perez brings a lot of money. You look at that Red Bull car in 2021, you got Telmex, you got Telcel, you got Claro, you got these brands that support Sergio. They will come with him. Bring him back to Alfa Romeo. Bottas, Perez, I know they were the number 2 drivers this year, but new regulations, I think that could be a really, really good team. 2 very, very experienced drivers in the sport, no doubt. And I think Sauber kind of need that. I know Pourchaire's waiting in the wings, but I just think one season with them 2 at it, we don't know how well Pourchaire's going to do in Formula 2. I think he'll do well, but maybe it's similar to what Alpine have done with Piastri, where Pourchaire does well. Then they have Bottas and Perez for 2023, and Pourchaire does kind of a testing reserve driver role. I think that would work. And then maybe Pourchaire for 2024, because he is super young, remember. Like, how old's Pourchaire again? Yeah, Pourchaire's only 18. He's not 19 till like August, so he's got time. Let's not rush it with Tao Pourchaire. They've got a diamond there, and I think this is a good way. He'd learn a lot from Bottas and Perez as well. I think that could be a really clever move, and they still get the money coming in because of Sergio Perez. And last but by no means least, at the Uralkali Haas Formula 1 team, I'm saying Nikita Mazepin stays for obvious reasons. We know his dad's money is so ingrained in that team, he's not going anywhere. And then alongside him, I'm saying Guan Yu Zhou and not Mick Schumacher, which means Mick Schumacher is out of a seat in 2023. Now look, obviously, he doesn't deserve to lose his seat. Does he deserve a seat more than Nikita Mazepin? Obviously. The way I'm looking at it here, right, Ferrari have got a difficult situation because they've got Charles and they've got Carlos driving at a really good level. I know it's only been one season them together, but it's looking very good. From what I have heard, from what I kind of know and what I understand about the Guan Yu Zhou deal is that he will be racing in Formula 1 in 2023, okay, regardless of how well he does in 2022, because got to remember, we're not racing in China this year, and there is no way Guan Yu Zhou's coming into this sport and not going to do a Chinese Grand Prix in 2023. He's going to be in a team. It's going to happen. But again, with Perez's money going to Alfa Romeo, that leaves Zhou out of a seat. And Mick Schumacher, I think Mick Schumacher's got a lot of promise. I really do. And he definitely doesn't deserve to lose his Formula 1 seat. I think he's there on merit. But I think the money that Zhou is going to bring, and I think Haas don't have the infrastructure. As much as, yeah, there's these new regulations show, there's a reason pretty much everyone is still like Haas are going to be towards the bottom because they don't have the infrastructure. And you've got to imagine that the Mazepin money and the Zhou money from Nikita's dad and Zhou's sponsors, that could completely revolutionise and change and upscale that team, whatever name it's going to be long term. This prediction's based off, we're going into 2022 and Haas are going to be down at the bottom. You know, they've written off the whole 2021 season and then they're the worst car. Like, I don't know. That's what I think is going to happen. Who knows? Obviously, the lower you finish, the more wind tunnel time and all that you get. But obviously, Haas don't have that infrastructure, and having these two drivers in could allow them to build that infrastructure. You got to remember, like, yes, there's a cost cap, but they can still build infrastructure in the same way that Aston Martin are building this new facility, but that's not coming out of their cost cap. If they want to be a serious team long term, they need to upscale their facilities, and a Mazepin-Joe duo would allow that. As for Mick, obviously that would be tragic for him, but I'd say, he'd probably go into a reserve test role for Ferrari and just be super close to that team. I don't know, maybe there'd be an opportunity where Carlos Sainz would move. You can't see Charles Leclerc moving, but who knows what would happen. He'd keep himself in that framework, but yeah, he'd lose his seat at Haas, which, I mean, it's been trial by fire for Mick Schumacher, to be fair. So that's my 20 drivers for the 2023 season. There's a few long shots here, okay? But look, if you don't buy a ticket, you don't win the lottery, okay? And before we finish the video, I asked you lot what you thought, any left field shouts going on. And we're going to have a look at a few of them. Ones that I didn't say, but you lot did. Starting with Ruben on YouTube Community. Thank you, Ruben. If you're not subscribed, then you can't get involved in these on YouTube Community, by the way. So make sure you subscribe and like the video as well. Appreciate it. If Hamilton leaves Mercedes, which is unlikely given his 2-year contract, then Gasly would be Mercedes' best shout to replace him, in my opinion. Gasly is nowhere else to go, and most other options are stuck in long-term contracts. Well, look, like I said before, obviously contract is a contract, but it's not like it's legally binding, but you can break those binds. But yes, obviously, if Lewis was to leave Mercedes, would Gasly be the next best option? Maybe. Part of me, though, is like, right, if I'm Toto Wolff, I'm in Oscar Piastri's ear. I'm like, look, I know you're part of Alpine, but Lewis might leave at the end of the season. I know it's a risk, Oscar Piastri in a Mercedes alongside George Russell, but the potential that, I mean, they're both two of the most dominant F2 champions of all time. It's unfortunate for Pierre because until he properly delivers at a top team, that 2019 Red Bull stint will always be held against him. So Mercedes would be that opportunity to prove himself that he can do it at the very top. I love Pierre. I'd like for him to get it. But if I'm Toto Wolff, Piastri's the riskier option, but maybe the better long-term one as well. Maybe. Grog22 said Piastri to Williams replacing Latifi as Alonso does another year after taking a couple of wins in 2022. I don't disagree with that final bit. I think Alonso, if they give him a competitive car, he can win races 100%, no question. Piastri to Williams replacing Latifi. I mean, that would be a fantastic move for Williams. Would Alpine loan him out basically to Williams for a year? I mean, again, who's bringing in the money? That's the question, because Williams, the fact that they're keeping Latifi and they've not signed a Piastri already for 2022 suggests to me that that money is clearly still a factor that's needed at Williams. Albon's not bringing massive financial backing with him either. But again, from Williams' point of view, if they could make this happen, Albon, Piastri, look, I still think Albon's potential is pretty high. I think Piastri's potential is even higher. That would be a fantastic move. RM99, Pato O'Ward joins McLaren after another great IndyCar season, replacing Ricciardo, who is dropped after another below expectation season. There was quite a lot of people who said Ricciardo to be dropped, which, look, for me, I don't know. That's a stretch for me because look, yeah, he's had one poor season jumping into a new car. I think again he's shown that he's not the most adaptable driver. He's not a Fernando Alonso who can get into anything and go quick almost straight away. But when all those components are together and Daniel's happy and confident, look how well he drove at Cota. Like genuinely, I think that was a big component of why he did so well that weekend. He was just in a very, very good place in his mind. Pato O'Ward, I love him. He's such a character. He would be amazing in Formula One. But at the expense of Daniel Ricciardo, for me, that's a bit of a long shot. Maybe. You weren't the only one to suggest this. Quite a few people said this, to be fair. Simon69 says Schumacher to Aston Martin. I believe Vettel will retire at the end of the season and Aston Martin best shout would be Schumacher. Haas going to replace him with Piastri or the 2022 F2 champ. I mean, look, again, Aston Martin working towards something. They signed Vettel for a reason. Perez was doing so well at Racing Point. Probably driver of the year in 2022, and he still got replaced by Vettel, who had a really poor 2020. Vettel is that marquee signing. I don't think Sebastian's going anywhere. There's been talk of him retiring. I don't see that happening. But if he did, would Schumacher be a good replacement? It'd be a risky replacement because we still don't really know where Schumacher's level is because it's been impossible to compare him really to any other, competitive running car apart from his teammate, who obviously wiped the floor with, fair enough, but Mazepin wasn't exactly coming with the best CV in F2, was he? It'd be good vibes, but a Schumacher-Stroll partnership, that doesn't sound like a particularly exciting partnership to me, to be honest, considering where Aston Martin want to go anyway. If that was a junior team, if that was like an Alfa Tauri partnership, because you You got to remember, Lance is still very young. Then I could get a bit more behind that. But for Aston Martin, with their hopes and dreams, the hopes and dreams of Lawrence Stroll as high as they are, I don't see it. Then on to Twitter, at LilFin12. Joe gets harshly dropped because of how doggy looks next to Big B. Big Bottas, I guess you mean. Meaning Teo gets the seat for 2023. Again, look, there's a lot of expectation on Teo Pourchaire. He's still only 18. I know Max did it when he was 18, but not everyone's Max Verstappen. Pourchaire's showing a stupid amount of potential. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it just depends if any other teams are sniffing, I suppose, because if they are, then they might be, forced to show their hand and give him a seat, maybe. At Joe Rigotti 65, Ricciardo goes back to Red Bull, while Perez goes back to Aston Martin, and Stroll is kicked out of his seat. Gasly moves to Alpine alongside Ocon. Wow. Okay, so Ricciardo back to Red Bull. I mean, he'd have to have a very, very good 2022 because, look, 21's definitely damaged Daniel's reputation, no question. Perez, Vettel, Aston Martin would be incredible, but that's just not going to happen. It's surely not going to. There's no way Lawrence is kicking his son out of that seat. No, he owns the team. It's not going to happen. Do I think it'd be a better lineup? 100%. Perez, Vettel would be sick. As for Gasly to Alpine alongside Ocon, obviously that was a prediction I made back in last season's one, but Piastri, no. Piastri's there, Joe. So Ricciardo back to Red Bull, surely not. He would just feel like he's wasted the last 4 years of his life. I think that's not even worth challenging that. De Juice, definitely haven't pronounced that right. Ocon and Russell at Mercedes after Lewis retires. Oscar Piastri paired with Alonso at Alpine in 2023. Ocon to Mercedes. I remember earlier on this in 2021, a lot of people were talking about Ocon to Mercedes when he started the season really well, and then he kind of had that purple patch in the middle, and then everyone was like, he's washed, which is, fickle fans, classic. If Ocon has a really strong 2022, then he puts himself prime in the line for that Mercedes seat. Obviously, he's got that relationship with Toto Wolff as his manager. I don't think he's his manager anymore, but he might be. I know he's got a long-term contract at Alpine, but ask Sergio Perez. Contracts can be bought out. Ocon to Mercedes is a very interesting one. Oscar Piastri paired with Alonso at Alpine. I mean, that would also make sense. If Ocon was to leave, then Piastri in, no question. He'd learn a lot from Fernando as well. And then finally, Laura at LCB. The Ferrari drivers will clash during 2022, so one of them will leave the team in 23 and replace Hamilton in case he retires. I don't see Gasly and Merck. I mean, if the Ferrari drivers do clash, I think it's Sainz leaving, not Leclerc. Charles is so embedded into that team. He's been Ferrari Driver Academy since the very beginning, and he has that long-term contract. I think Ferrari would just side with him, to be honest, if things did come to blows with Sainz. But yeah, obviously in this scenario, you'd see Sainz go into Mercedes, which Sainz at Mercedes would also be sick. Sainz and Russell, teammates at Mercedes. I could get behind that, because then you could maybe see Mick Schumacher replace Sainz at Ferrari. Sainz go to... That actually sounds quite good. But there we have it. That is a wrap. Let me know in the comments below your left field shouts, your bold predictions on the driver market, because I think we could be in for a spicy one in 2023. Big up Squarespace once again for sponsoring this video. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.